Finally working on another unit for my Iron Warriors Legion. Today we're going to be kitbashing some Obliterators out of this awesome Necromunda kit, the Ambot. According to the lore, these are hulking, baroque meddlings of Chaos Space Marine demon-infused armor and mutated weaponry. Now I know there's some discrepancy on whether or not the Iron Warriors are as mutated as other Chaos Space Marines, but I like the aesthetic in which they aren't. So we're going to be sticking with these more metallic robo guys instead of the meddling of flesh and machine. And I think these are just super cool models. Not entirely sure what the role of them is in Necromunda, whether or not they're actual abominable intelligence or not, but they're cool. They've got some sweet buzzsaws on their arms already, and their big hulking bodies fit perfectly with the idea of the Obliterators in my mind. I'm building the models as per instructions, except I'm not putting the head in. Also keeping the shoulder pauldron things off so I can airbrush them later. Just use some poster tack to leave them in place for now. Now I gotta pull up my phone and stop getting distracted by pictures of Oscar. He's so cute. And we'll look at the weapons that the Obliterator needs to have. First up is the Focused Malice, which is like a Melta. I forgot to record these, but I put two little barrels right above their heads to represent this Melta weapon. And then for the Runus Salvo, I used a missile launcher that was left over from the 30k Sentinel I turned into the Drill Knot. These will be perfect for some missile blasts. I carve at the bottom with a hobby knife to conform it to the edge, and then use some sprue goo to attach it. And then for the Warp Hail weapon, I used this big ol' cannon from a Space Marine Gladiator Reaper tank. The Heavy Onslaught Gatling Cannon. Picked it up from a bit store and thought it'd be perfect for these guys. I also have these alternate 3D printed Iron Warriors inspired helmets. I picked out a cool one and stuck some green stuff in and some super glue and then kind of wiggled it and jammed it and eventually got it into place. From the same bit store, I also got the Warpsmith Cape, which is just a really cool piece, and I think it'll look great on these Obliterators. I find a good place for it, chop it up a bit, and use some sprue goo to secure it into place. Don't really care if the joint looks very good at all right now, because I'm going to cover it in more chains. But first I gotta get the tubes that were there originally bent and put back kind of into a nice place. I chopped them up a bit and fit them behind the cape. Now once again, to cover up all of my sins, I'm gonna use some jewelry store chain and super glue it into place, kinda seeming like it's part of the cape. I've been using chain a lot in this army, and I did a similar technique on my Chaos Lord and Terminator armor, which I built and painted off camera. He came out pretty cool looking. Went a little crazy with the tactical rocks. Obliterator's looking great. I'm quite proud of him. And we need a second one. There he is. Haha. Alright, let's get the painting. Oh, but first we gotta put them on a base. For this army, I just do big chunks of bark to be a nice Martian style rock, and then surround it with dirt paste and fill the gaps. Alright, I primed the models black to bring everything together. Looking good. And while I got the airbrush out, let's go ahead and do this shoulder pauldron cover things. I airbrushed them white, and then airbrush over some Imperial Fist contrast paint. Next we keep the party going by taking some little tiny strips of tape and covering the Imperial Fist contrast paint, and this is how we make hazard stripes. Once those are secured, we go ahead and airbrush over some black. I was rushed to do this, with the new dog was barking at me and I didn't secure the tape very well, but it looks okay. Now for some dry brushing, we do some black metallics all over it, and then some dark aluminum from Vallejo. Now we gotta super glue these little pauldrons back on, get them nice and secure, and then we do a little bit of extra sponging, just to do a little bit more chipping and damage all along them. Now you're gonna find out why I prefer to airbrush these, because I decided I wanted some more hazard straps on these guys, so I'm gonna take one knee on each of them and start painting them white. And it took about, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 layers of white, and then like 3, 4-ish layers of Imperial Fist, so it's just a lot of layers. If you can, airbrushing is just easier. And for these hazard stripes, I just freehanded. I don't have the steadiest hand, and these look a little wonky, but that's okay. Especially after I add little bits of damage and the unifying wash later, you can't really tell. Now I take Agros Dunes contrast paint and turn any silver parts I want into this dirty, bronzy, brassy, coppery color. 2 layers of this looks great. Next, some black Templar contrast paint all over the tubes and hoses and anything I don't want to be super metallic. Here are the completed base coats for the models. They're looking good. Did a little bit of red Blood Angels contrast paint on the missiles to make them stand out a little bit more. Now we're ready for a wash. I take Rattling Grime contrast paint and mix it 50-50 with clean water. And then I just start swapping it all over the model, trying to pull it away from any raised edges, mostly sticking to the shadows and recesses. But it gives just a nice grimy darkness to things. Very dark contrast paint with a little bit of brown in it. And I think it looks great on these models. Next, we're going to try some dirty down rust effects. This stuff is super gunky. You gotta shake it like crazy. And just start plopping it on places where I think rust would accumulate all over the model. It's water soluble, so you can do some feathering and stuff, but I just like to stick it in there and add some interest. Didn't go too crazy with it, just a couple little touches around the model where I think rust would be. You get some cool variations when you layer it up. Now it's time for the heat effects on the weapons. I take some white ink and drop it in where the weapons are going to be the hottest. So in the center of these saw blades and in the internal barrel areas of this big old minigun. Then with an airbrush, I cover basically the entire weapon or entire glowing area with that same white ink to prepare for some fluorescent inks. Starting with orange fluorescent ink, I slowly layer it up to get really nice bright orange hotness. Then with red fluorescent ink, I go further back and further away from the heat sources to add some redness. Cooling it down a little bit. And we should be done with the airbrushing now so we can demask. It's the fun part. I messed up this first one. But the second one, that's a better demasking. Then mixing black and a dark red, I start the dry brush over the metallic parts towards the edges where things would be a little bit cooler. I gotta get better at this and a little bit more patient. It's a work in progress. I learned a lot of this technique from watching the reels from El Miniaturista. He's awesome. Next we take some metallic and just start dry brushing that off with this kind of the final touch where the metal is basically cooled off. A big part of this process is selecting the right areas, and I'm slowly getting better at it, but there's still a lot of work to do. Now the really fun part, I take these enamel liquid pigments, this light orange color, and start dropping that in. It's very light orange, almost yellow, trying to put a little bit more bright heat in the recesses. I could spend all day applying this stuff and feathering it out. It lightens as it dries. It's super weird, and I'm learning it, and I'm loving it. Now we can finally do the bases. I take some burnt red and a random earth color and just start smushing these around. I don't know if these do anything. They're not even going to show up under the next step, but that's okay. We take some red oxide pigment powders and start smushing these around. Mars in a bottle looks great. And there we go, the final models. They are awesome. I love them. I had a blast kit bashing them and painting them up, and they're one of my proudest things I've ever made. I had so much fun with these. I think they came out cool. The pigment powders just link them to the base in such a fun way, and I'm slowly getting better at these molten effects. Oh, they're great. I'm painting a lot slower because of the puppy, but these things took me like 2 weeks. Really don't have a lot of time, but I really want to get more done on this army. Let me know if you have any questions, tips, comments, or if you know what good units would be good in sort of a Iron Warriors Dark Mechanicum army like this. If there's any models out there I haven't come across, please let me know. Leave a like if you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Bye!